Hi, Peter. It's really great to have you join us for the launch of our report. So we've heard that while the global economic crisis has negatively impacted digital inclusion overall, it's great to see that the mobile gender gaps have narrowed slightly in Kenya over the last year, which is great. But I think our data is also showing that a number of women, and more women than men, have reported they've decreased their mobile internet usage in the last year, particularly those who live in rural areas, are less educated and older. And I was just curious, does this resonate with what you're seeing in the market?
Yes, so first of all, thank you, Claire, for having me on this. Always great to talk about inclusion, and in particular digital inclusion, which is a great topic because it makes a big difference to a lot of our people across the country. And we still have very many excluded people. In terms of what we are seeing, of course, the crisis that the world is facing, and of course that affects Africa and Kenya, is affecting customer disposable income. So in many ways, we have seen impact across all our offerings. So we've had to reduce prices on mobile data, offer more usage for less value or for the same value, and also even have had to do more to actually make devices more affordable. So it's not surprising to see people complaining that they are using less, whether they are men or women. But it's great to see that we are not widening the gap. In terms of specifically the reason why there's a gap between men and women, and especially for rural areas, it's primarily three things. One is the penetration of smartphones, which we have continued to drive. The second is affordability of both smartphones, but also of mobile internet itself. And then thirdly, it's sometimes when people are not sure whether it makes a difference, whether they use the internet or not, or whether they are from places which they might not be as well educated. And in some societies, it's the men who have the phones. So sometimes it is also a cultural issue that we have to address.
That's really interesting, and interesting that what you're seeing in the barriers. And I think that's exactly also what our sort of report is showing, is that, handsets and affordability are a big issue, and lack of literacy and skills and perceived relevance. I was just wondering, I know you've been doing a lot of work on these issues, really interesting stuff. I was wondering if you could just maybe share a little bit more about what you've been doing to address these barriers, and also some of the lessons that you've learned. I'm sure the audience would love to hear.
Yes, so Claire, we've been doing a lot. In fact, we've been leading the way in terms of ensuring that we leave no one behind, improve penetration and access to mobile internet. And indeed, since the election in Kenya last year, the new government has actually made ICT and digitization and actually access to the internet as a big enabler of its social and economic agenda. And we have, for example, recently been involved in launching one of the most successful accessible credit, which is called Hustler Fund in Kenya, where we now have about 15 million people who have already borrowed more than 24 billion Kenya shillings, which is more than $200 million. And the gender split is almost equal. So which is great. And although it's about 48-52, that's not a very significant difference in terms of borrowing between men and women. So we are leading the way. So a number of things that we've done, we have focused a lot on affordability of smartphones through a Lipa Mdogo Mdogo campaign, which is pay little by little, which is pay as you go mobile device financing. You pay $5 as a deposit and 20 US cents every day of M-Pesa. That has really attracted a lot of customers, and we are seeing incredible interest, especially from women, especially rural and peri-urban women, which is fantastic. The second aspect, and we saw a slight decline in sale of smartphones because there was also an increase in taxes last year. So sometimes duties and taxes affect the cost of imported mobile devices. And what we've now agreed with the government is, as an industry, we are working with a partner. We'll produce phones locally, so we'll assemble phones locally so that we are able to hit those price points that we think are important, which is around $50 US. And then also agree with government whether, because we have something we call Universal Service Fund, which MNOs contribute to the national kitty. And it was primarily to provide access of internet in places which are not commercially viable. But now we are saying to government, you can use that same money to actually give devices or subsidize devices, because that is an important element of access. So financing on a pay-as-you-go, local device assembly, and then the other element is actually reducing the cost of accessing the internet, the data cost. So we've been reducing data cost in Kenya for the past 3 years by 75%. In the past year by about 30%, and we've seen usage increase significantly. Usage more than double in essence. So that reduces the friction in terms of ability to use the internet. Then, of course, the last one is about educating, and we ran a very, very strong campaign, successful campaign. We are calling Mwelekeo ni Internet, that the way is accessing the internet, and it was very, very successful in terms of showing use cases for ordinary people on how they can use the internet, especially those what we call mama mboga, which is a woman who is carrying on small businesses, which has been extremely successful. And then when you combine that with offering accessible credit, then the use case becomes real especially for ordinary women.
Thank you so much. That's really interesting to hear how you're combining initiatives to kind of address the barriers holistically and really making a difference. That's great. And we've been following the work that you've been doing with great interest. It's very interesting. So thank you so much for sharing. Unfortunately, we have limited time together and I wish we could talk more. But I'd like to maybe ask you one final question, which is, based on your experience, what do you think is the single most impactful action we could take to address the mobile gender gap?
The single biggest one, and every time government asks me, is smartphone penetration. Smartphone in everyone's hand. We have 15 million unique 2G users in Kenya, a lot of which are women. If we could convert those to 4G, it will make a material difference in our ability to get internet access.
Interesting. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time today and for joining us. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Thank you very much.